I think I mentioned this in passing in other videos because it got me thinking about one thing me and my uncle did. Because at some point he got hurt working in New Jersey, I think, because he worked all over. Like, that guy has worked on 4 continents. Pretty sure he's worked in just about every state. So he's traveled all over, but you wouldn't know it to look at him because the man wears shorts without pockets, Carhartt shirts, and flip flops, and mainly dines on Vienna sausages and crackers. So you wouldn't believe he was well traveled to hear it. But he got hurt up that way, and he was trying to sue for workers' comp, which, from what my dad has told me, is incredibly complicated. And he said if you got hurt at work, you may as well just say you got hurt at home to make life easier, because they will do everything in their power to prevent your claim. But he needed to go up there to go see the doctor the person he was suing wanted him to see. And the lawyers sent him a note, and he wanted somebody to go with him. And at the time, I really wasn't doing anything, and he kept hinting he wanted me to go. He's like, all right. He's like, we'll drive up there and we'll go to Atlantic City. I was like, yeah, I guess. I had nothing better to do, and it might make for a decent story. And so I agreed to go, and we left early. I don't remember what day we left, but we left. And I stopped and got breakfast, and then I fell asleep in the car for like, I don't know, 2 hours, maybe 3. Because we were outside Knoxville, and I woke up, and he turns to me and he said, I'm glad you woke up. You shit on me for 2 hours. Apparently I'd been farting in my sleep and stunk up the car, but I don't know how true that is, because there's a lot of paper mills up there, and that could have been the smell, but he can think whatever he wants. But we were going to drive to somewhere in Virginia, I think it was Front Royal, and stop, stay the night, and then leave the next day to drive the rest of the way, because you had to go through DC traffic, and he knew best. So we get to the hotel, and as I said before, he's traveled a lot. Like, he exclusively stayed in hotels. Like, he would work for 2 months and live in that hotel for 2 months, for example. So he built up a lot of points. So, like, we stayed in a ridiculously nice room, stuff like that. And he goes to check in, and I stay in the car. He comes out. He's like, I'm going to the liquor store. I was like, huh? Because, a little backstory, he'd had open heart surgery, and he was on Vicodin, and not the like the Dr. House pink Vicodin that they don't make anymore. He took those, and you shouldn't mix that with alcohol. But he was away from my grandmother and his daughter, who were noted finger waggers about him drinking, because he really regretted having open heart surgery because he felt awful. But him looking for the liquor store made me nervous, because he used to get drunk in the hotel room and drunk dial us. So I was like, oh, great. He's going to get drunk and I'll have to babysit him. And we spent 2 hours trying to find the liquor store, because he had GPS, but we type it in, we couldn't find it. The clerk gave him directions. I was like, it's like, why don't we just give up? He's like, no, we're not going anywhere until I get a bottle. I was like, okay, whatever, man. Do whatever you want. And he finally found it, and we got back to the room, and to his credit, he only drank like 2 Jack and Cokes and then went to bed. So I can't hold that against him. He didn't get blinding drunk. And then he woke up the next day, because we were going to head to somewhere in New Jersey, and the first thing he did was he woke up, took a Vicodin, and then packed up and got ready to leave. Got in the car, he took another one. 30 minutes later, we're driving, he took another one, and then we got breakfast, he took another one after breakfast, and he intermittently took one every so often. Like he, not necessarily saying he was addicted. It was just they stopped. They kind of lost their potency. Because I mean, they did cut his sternum open with a chainsaw, so I try to give him the benefit of the doubt because I've never really called him an addict. And that's when I learned about his eating schedule. Like he would eat breakfast and then he wouldn't want anything until 9 o'clock at night. And I was just like, nope, I can't deal with that. I like my 3 meals a day. I'm fat. I need to eat. And that was the day I learned that DC traffic is some of the worst I've ever seen. Like I've been through Atlanta. Atlanta's bad. I've had friends that say, oh yeah, Houston's even worse. But DC, that metro area is a solid 150 miles in every direction it can be. So there's people coming everywhere. Although one thing I liked was driving through, I recognized like all the landmarks and exits thanks to Fallout 3 and playing it so much. So that was pretty cool. But we didn't stop in DC. We kept going. I can't remember where we ended up. We went to Atlantic City. And this was before Sandy Hook hit, or I think that's what it was. No. Some hurricane hit up there. I don't remember which one it was. And this was before that. And we went and gambled. We went to the Trump Casino and we hung out there for a while. And then we went and found another hotel because the next day was his doctor's appointment. And I'm trying to think what else. Atlantic City was nice. What I remember, it looked like a pretty good area, but from what they all told me, because on the way up, we saw nothing but advertisements for Delaware casinos and casinos in other states that weren't Atlantic City. So that meant maybe they weren't doing as well, at least back then. But who knows? And the next day we go to the doctor, and I have to say, I have never, we were the first ones there. They saw us immediately. And his attorneys had sent him like a packet that said, that doctor's not on your side. You need to watch out for what he asks and blah, 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 this. And that doctor seemed to be the nicest old man I've ever seen. He was about my grandmother's age, so it put him solidly over 80 years old, and he was nice. He checked on my uncle's injury, and that was that. And then we decided, yeah, because he wanted to go stay in Atlantic City, and I was like, nah, let's just save your money. Let's just drive back. So we drove from New Jersey to Gadsden, Alabama, all in one day. It was 800 miles. And I just have to tell you, it was quite the drive. And about through Virginia, he's like, oh, why don't you drive the rest of it? I was like, yeah, sure. I owe him that much. Because I think in New Jersey, there was some stuff I wouldn't mind seeing, but I didn't know the geography of the state. Because that state was very different. We got gas that same morning, and you can't pump your own gas in New Jersey. So that was some food for thought. So in Virginia, I started driving, and drives do go a lot faster if you're driving like that long. I do not recommend you do it in one day. I would not do it now. If it's 800 miles to where you're going, you need to fly. But my uncle loves flying. And I don't love it, but I'll take an hour, 2 hours of discomfort instead of 12 hours of sitting in a car, because 12 hours in a car, you were so worn out. Say you drove to the beach or something, you probably only want to eat dinner and then go to bed. So there was that. I think we made the drive just fine, and we probably would have got back quicker, but we stopped and bought lottery scratch-offs in Georgia and hung out doing that for a while. Then I got home and went back to my dad's house, and I think I went to bed. And the fallout from that trip was, turns out that the lawyers were not wrong. The doctor may have been against him because it took him, I don't know, 7 years to get the money. and a bunch of angry letters to his lawyer because they drug it out and they drug it out and they drug it out because they didn't want to give my uncle the workers' comp. They didn't want to give him the disability. That's why you do need to hire a lawyer, though, because they tell you to do that. But he ended up taking less, but he got like a decent sized settlement, which he used to put into his land. But that was the longest road trip I've ever taken. That was a epic in scale trip, and sometimes I forget about the fact, oh yeah, I've been in Atlantic City, I've been to New Jersey, I've been through several states, but I don't recommend it, but that was a decent little trip.